Well, we have another quick virtual lecture here that we want to share with you. It's on domestic violence. There was a time when there was no real such thing as domestic violence. It was all just battery. If someone got in a fight in a bar, battery. If someone got in a fight at home, beat up the wife, battery. And if the police didn't witness it, they couldn't bring the charges. So in the modern era, especially propelled a lot by feminist thinking, we're trying to give women a voice and protect them. And so we've seen the advent of this domestic violence. And a lot of states have added new laws, for example, for stalking or a specific battery statute called domestic battery. And that has a lower threshold in terms of proof. The police officer can make arrests, for example. I think it's also very interesting. There's several different theories involved here. There's probably at least 10 or so on why domestic violence happens. There's a certain codependent theory where the woman kind of gets a thrill. Is he going to beat me tonight? Is he going to love me tonight? That's one possibility. There's also an evolution of obedience theory. And that is where basically the guy, it's kind of a Scandinavian approach where they get kidnapped, and then if the guy's kind to them at all, next thing you know, they're like a loyal servant. Another type is the patriarchal, goes way back in time, that families are just used to the father's in charge. If he wants to kick you around a little bit, that's just part of it. Another one is ecological, which is that some certain families, that's just a typology of a family that has a really high violence rate within the family. Everybody fights, man, wife, kids, everybody fighting all the time. Social learning can also be a type that kind of comes off of this. That is, the kids watch the mother being beat by the father, and then they go out and they start beating their wife or their significant other. So these are pretty interesting theories. None of them are exactly on point, I don't think. What I think is bigger is some of the research that's been done. There's some research that was done up in Minnesota where we actually had basically researcher, graduate student, more or less embeds herself. That would be kind of an ethnography where they would just go and observe what's going on, and they meet with the people, more or less embedded in the community, so they get around and they get to visiting with people, and so they just write down everything they see at the end of the day in kind of a journal type report. They talk to the wives, they talk to the husbands, they try to engage them in conversation across the backyard fence. So there's some really interesting outcomes based upon that. It's a qualitative approach to research and a little bit different than the old quantitative. There are more quantitative approaches that have been tried. In the quantitative, we have the ride-along with the police, and it's just kind of where they survey what happens. If we put the guy in jail for 4 hours, what happens? Does the guy offend again, or does he not? If we let him ride out, just let him go, let the guy go. Is there a difference? What's the difference? Is this repeat question mark offender or not? In other words, which one is more likely to repeat? The guy that's been put in jail or the guy that's been let to walk right out of the jail? Which do you think? Well, it's kind of interesting. I think really what they basically came up with is all pretty much about the same. That, in other words, jail time is not necessarily any kind of an incentive or preventative that stops domestic violence from happening again. And so it's very interesting, the different work that's being done in this field in domestic violence. Of course, then the flip side of it is what we call the burning bed syndrome. So in other words, syndrome defenses that we're seeing And these are, Farrah Fawcett did a movie on this in the 70s, probably put something up on that to show you. So we're talking about syndrome, defense, and what that's saying is, you know, it just builds up and builds up. The woman just can't take it anymore, so instead of just trying to escape or get away, she kills the boyfriend or the husband. And, you know, then what happens is, it's not per se self-defense. In general, it's where she has to kind of like sneak up on the guy, and so it wouldn't really qualify as self-defense, but it's brought on by months and perhaps years of violence where she's been beaten and beaten and beaten down, and so she reacts finally, she snaps, and she kills the guy. It's not per se a mental illness defense, but it's kind of something akin to a mental illness defense. Well, we'll come back later. We're going to have more discussion. This is more just kind of an introduction to domestic violence. We're going to come back later and we're going to talk to you a little bit more on victims, victimology, Benjamin Mendelsohn, some of his theory. Hershey also has some theories on this. We're going to discuss those in later video lecture that we're going to do. Hope you're enjoying these lectures. Hope they're helpful, get you to thinking, and get something started here. Thanks a lot.